I'm going to talk to you about being the only one, not being number one, mostly by sharing my personal experience of failures. My first startup story is about Midol. Midol was downloaded 14 million times. We received investment and sold it at the end. But it was a painful experience of failure, not just for me, but for the investors and the employees as well. Midol was a mobile app that allowed fans around the world to communicate with their favorite stars. I started Midol when I was 25, so it was this handful of young college students starting and operating this company. But thankfully, the service was downloaded 14 million times in total, so we could grow without major marketing spending. Around 95% of its users were in overseas, so the business could grow thanks to the users. We received investment as well since it was very rare event back in 2014-15 to attract such a large number of users. Company K and Bond Angels, those famous investors, invested about 1.7 billion won in Midol. And in December 2018, after 6 years of operation, Midol was sold to a company called Malang Corporation. People ask me, you sold a company at a young age. Isn't that a good thing? Why do you think you failed? They also ask me, did that make you rich? But the bottom line is, Midol was a huge failure. It's just that I transferred the service to another provider, and that was it. Investors saw a big loss, and I was thankful and honored that I was able to close the business with no debt. The balance was zero, so there was no financial reward. I thought there were three major problems. First was governance, and we were not making any money despite all those users. I did not have the business model where the growth of users translates into immediate profit. And lastly, I often talk about the team market fit. You may be familiar with the product market fit, which is about how well a technology or product fits the market. I believe the team market fit is just as important because we were a team that developed IT services and provided them to users, but the entertainment companies and celebrities who were at the center of the market were not interested, so we ended up being burned out. So we co-founders sat down and talked, and we were like, we can't do this. We are paid less than 2 million won a month, and it's been 6 years. It's just not gonna work. That was the bottom line. So we talked to those two investors, and that said that we cannot do this anymore. We've tried everything we could, and now we want to sell it. And they were so gracious and supportive. So, as much as I hated it, I admitted the failure and spent the year 2018 wandering around the market to sell the company. Usually, a company is sold when the market wants. If you try to sell a failed company, you'll be snubbed by the market. Oh, you want to get rid of it? Why don't you dump it at a cheap price? It felt as though they were saying, we knew you were going to fail. That's just who you are. So that's how I spent the year. So I was hitting the rock bottom of my life. And Bond Angels invites companies in their portfolio at this annual end of year gathering. There were very successful CEOs there. And it was unbearable for me to be sitting there thinking, I failed and here I am with all these rich, successful people. What am I doing here? Mr. Jang Byung-gyu, the current CEO of Krafton, came by to say hello when I was about to leave. And somehow I felt that it would be my last chance to talk to him. So I waited until after everybody and went up to him and said hello. He looked very happy to see me and asked me how Midol was doing, and I said that I was closing the business for such and such reasons. And he asked me right away if I had debt, and then he hugged me. I still get emotional thinking about that night. His words and his hug just meant a lot to me. He said, you can always start a business, so let's do it together. So it got me thinking, why did I ever want to start a company? In a way, I didn't really want to start a company. Then how much money did I want to make? Honestly, I wanted to make at least 10 billion won. But I wonder what is more important. I felt I was the kind of person who is motivated by value, and I wanted to create this value. And it seemed like the only way to do this both was to start a company again. So I decided to start a company again, and this time to really do it myself, do it my way. So I and Kim Sun-jun, former Maido CTO, founded Korea Senior Lab. At first, we didn't have many business ideas. We were just doing gigs from time to time. But what I did have was this list of all the failures in my life. So I started drawing lessons from the list and looking for ways to not repeat those failures. And I came up with these three clear criteria to decide the business item and the target market. First, the market should be way ahead of where we are today. Second, we should be making a good product, a good solution that could bring changes to the market. Third, we should be able to make money from day one or at least from the first month. But as you can see, this kind of business model doesn't exist. Even if it did, the market would be an oversaturated red ocean. In an incredible turn of events, however, we got to hear about and attend to this issue of aging population globally. So we founded a nursing home and tried out care services for the elderly. Just to test our idea, we put 20 million won in creating what we called Home Care Nursing Center. We would do everything from responding to inquiries, recruiting caregivers, taking the elderly to hospitals, to sending them off to funerals when they die. So we were IT guys who were doing everything but IT. That made me see this great potential. It was a huge market, and yet nobody was providing IT solutions. And also, it looked like I could make money from day one because of the government subsidy. So that's how I decided to found Korea Senior Lab. All the things we do, all the decisions we make at Korea Senior Lab is a result of learning from my failure with my doll. This process is meaningful business-wise, of course. But personally, it was a very meaningful process of figuring out what I, as a person, was going to do with my life. Many of you here, I believe, have studied hard all along. You must have worked hard in school, and your parents must have told you to study hard, be number one, go to a good university, get a good job, and join the government or become this great professional. That's a good life. And I was told all that too. But today, everything that we ever believed is changing completely. But we still have this voice in our head saying, why don't you try for a bar exam? Why don't you get a job in a large company? Starting a business is no picnic. You're just being young and restless, and so on and so forth. And I try to be very careful not to base my decisions on this voice in my head. So I ask myself many questions over and over again, like who I am, what I like, why I don't want to work for a large company and instead want to start my own business. And I came to my own conclusions. So I want to ask you, what is your life really about? What do you like? What are the decisions that you made recently? What responsibilities do you have? Can you answer these questions confidently? And another thing is, if your answer is, oh, I go to this great university, KAIST, I'm getting master's and doctoral degrees, that will get me a job in a big company and I will be richer than others, very highly likely, then I will ask again, a better college degree, a better job, more money than others. Is that really everything that makes up your life? In the process of starting my business the second time around, I didn't focus on exceeding others or making more money than others. Instead, I focused on the problems I wanted to solve, what kind of solutions I wanted to provide. Striving to become the only one, not number one, I think is what the life of an entrepreneur is about. I don't think the life of an entrepreneur is something very extraordinary. It's just a combination of all these elements, mostly. Only it's a job that's a lot more risky with perhaps a lot bigger reward. But the essence is, despite all these difficulties and suffering, and even if it takes everything you have, you want to do it. So you choose to do it. You choose to take all the responsibility. I think that's the life of an entrepreneur. I understand we're all living through a hard time, and events like the recent Itaewon tragedy get us thinking about what life is really about. But anyhow, I hope all of you will strive to become the only one, and I am rooting for your life. Thank you.